Hi, and welcome to the Momversation Club. I'm Claire Strong.
And I'm Christina Struckmeyer. We're two moms just like you, navigating the nitty-grittiness of modern motherhood and taking you along with us as we talk about the topics that nobody talks about.
Yep, and today we're talking about assumptions, our first impressions of each other, and why you should look deeper as you encounter the mums in your life. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Claire. How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Just kind of surviving over here. We were talking a little bit about it offline. You're like, me too. We were talking about it offline, but I'm starting to get into the part where toddlers go into preschool and looking into all of that for my littlest little. And I'm like, where did the time go? Like, I feel like all the old ladies are right. It goes by so fast.
I know, people tell you that, don't they, all the way through, and it literally is true. I know I've got to look at high school selections for my youngest. She's going to be starting high school in the fall. I know, it's just insane. And then my oldest one, in a year's time, she'll be looking at colleges and deciding what she's going to do after high school. So it's absolutely crazy. And it does go
so wild. Right. Well, speaking of time, like I was thinking about the podcast recently, and it's just crazy that it's been such a long time since episode 1. Thank you for you listeners who have been sticking with us since the beginning. But how did that time fly?
Crazy. So, I mean, we've been going, we had our year birthday back in October. Mm-hmm. So, we'll be going on for, the 18-month mark pretty soon. It's absolutely insane. And yeah, thank you listeners for sticking with us, because this is a labor of love that we couldn't do without you. So we appreciate you so much.
It feels like just yesterday that I got a Facebook message from you like, hey, I have an idea, which is kind of the premise of today's episode, right?
It is. That's a really good segue, because
there we go.
Today we're actually going to be sharing our first impressions of each other. Now, we've not spoken about this, so I don't know how flattering your first impressions of me were. I guess I'm going to find out. But yeah, so that's how, for people that don't know, that's how we met. So we didn't have like the regular start to a friendship where maybe we met at some, at work or at some parenting thing or wherever. We are related through our husbands, but we hadn't met in person. And so we were Facebook friends. So our first impressions of each other were definitely colored by what we saw on Facebook. So I want you to go first.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because social media, you are in control of that narrative. And so you see what you see, and then it's filtered through your own life experiences and what you've encountered in the past. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll start us off. So when I first encountered you, first off, you're gorgeous. You are just so beautiful and poised and just all the things. So I assumed when I saw you, because you were so beautiful and poised, that you would be very prim and proper and like very just like had a sense to yourself, like, oh no, I would never talk about such things, clutches pearls, and it's so funny because as we got into our friendship, that's not the case.
No, it's not. That's really funny. And actually, I think that if I look back on my kind of friendships today, a lot of the people that I am friends with, or that I have been friends with in the past, because, friendships sometimes are just, for a particular season in your life. But quite often, like one of my best friends, Rachel, who listens to this podcast, she admitted to my daughters that she hated me at first because she thought I was, a little bit stuck up and that, she, maybe I'm a bit kind of competitive and I was a bit of a rival to her. She did not like me. She'd never even spoken to me at this point, but she decided she didn't like me. She saw me, she didn't like me. As that friendship progressed, I actually ended up being her bridesmaid and godmother to her kids and everything else. So obviously, her first impressions weren't true, but I feel that sometimes maybe I do give off that vibe, because I've had that feedback a lot, which is funny because I'm not really like that. I'm not, I'm very...
Not to say that you're the slob or anything.
Well,
she's the worst. No, I think that to be honest, I've evaluated it after I thought it, right? And
Yeah,
I went, what is it? And I think it's because you carry yourself in a really confident way, and
right.
that's not typical of women. Like a lot, and the way the reason I say that is if you see pictures of you, you kind of you stand up straight and you present yourself well, and I think a lot of that comes from your job and your education
Yeah.
because you're an on-camera personality.
I think that definitely plays a big part because if I'm slouching behind a microphone or in front of a camera and I'm supposed to be projecting this air of authority as a journalist, that just doesn't tally up. So I think you're right. I think a lot of it is my training. I was a journalist at a very young age, and I've had professional training with the BBC, and so that definitely has got something to do with it. Also, I think my ballet, honestly, my ballet background, because again,
Probably.
I had to be very, very poised. I was used to being on stage, so even if I'm nervous, you wouldn't necessarily know that because I'm just trained to when I'm on stage. If I'm nervous, in fact, if I'm nervous, I will smile all the more. I will away. It's funny, and I do the same with Pilates. If things are getting hard at Pilates, I start smiling, and my instructor will always say, "Oh, ladies, things are getting hard." Claire's smiling over there.
Do you do the crazy eyes while you smile so they know there's like something behind there?
So I'm enjoying myself. The pain is just wonderful, and I'll tell you
Well,
what it is. But let me just tell you quickly about that. It's a funny story. So I was training to go to ballet school when I was a teenager, and my ballet teacher, who was more like a second mum to me, she was really hard with me. And so she would say to me, sometimes my feet would be bleeding through my point shoes because point shoes are brutal. They're just terrible.
yeah.
They all need to be burned. Anyway, and she would say to me, people, when you turn professional, I went into journalism instead of a professional ballet, so this didn't happen. But she used to say to me, when you're a professional, people are paying good money to watch you, Claire, on stage, and they don't want to see you like grimacing because your feet are hurting you. So you just smile as if nothing is going on, and that's what they're paying to see. And so that's definitely translated into my everyday life.
I'll tell you what, I was really, I think, put at ease the first time I heard you cuss. And I went, okay, we're going to be fine. We're going to be okay.
God, that's funny. Yeah, well, I'm I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm kind of not because I've had that feedback throughout my life. But I'm really glad that I immediately kind of dispelled some of your myths, maybe about
Yeah.
me, which is as far as
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, okay, that's
And
good.
anyone who listens to us knows that you got a way about yourself. You know what's up. So I took the first bullet. You give me like what's your first feedback?
Okay, so again, I'm going off Facebook, and I'm going to kind of throw this back at you, not exactly in the same format that you threw at me, but confident. I just thought, oh my God, this person is so confident. She is like almost borderline scary confident, like dare know whether I dare talk to her. Like, she might scare me. She kind of gives off those vibes. So it wasn't necessarily a negative. I was like, wow, good for her. This woman's, a very confident woman. And I love it. And actually, that's the type of woman that I want to work with and have as a podcast partner. But I will be honest, I was a little bit like, she may also be a little bit scary, like a little bit intimidating just because you just
Yeah.
came across so confident on all your posts.
I've heard that in real life too, like
Really?
confident, intimidating, which is so funny because I feel like sometimes, like especially when I was dating and I was a single mom, I felt like I had this like German Shepherd face, like how people have like resting bitch face.
Yeah,
I have a face where people want to tell me their trauma and their life stories. I'm like a counselor,
yeah,
and so I'm not intimidated to some people, but to other women, I've heard that feedback of like that's a lot of confidence. That's a lot of intimidation. And I also, when I'm in a group and I feel comfortable, for instance, like at story time or a place where I've like become in a comfortable space in that space, I do the same thing. I'm very confident. I know where things are going. I'll talk to a new person. I feel like I'm the leader. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And I want to say, first of all, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a great quality that you possess. And I do wonder why, as women, we are intimidated by that, because I want to be around confident women too. And as I've said, part of the reason I reached out to you is because I loved the confidence and energy that you emitted. But confident women are seen as a bit of a threat. I'm not sure
yeah.
that men like confident women. I was in a situation very recently. I was emceeing a big event at a local university here, and it was for government officials, so locally elected officials. And there was one guy who was representing one of the local cities here, and he started arguing with me over something. I was on stage in front of 60 people emceeing the event, and he just really like laid into me, and I was shocked. I was the MC. I wasn't even I wasn't one of the guest speakers. I mean, he had no like beef with me. We didn't really need to interact, and he really had, kind of just made a beeline for me. And I wondered afterwards, because a few women came up to me and said, "Oh my God, you handled that so well. Like, he was such a jerk, basically. Like, what was his problem?" And I did think, I just wonder whether some men are not comfortable with women being assertive and in charge. And I was running that event and it wasn't him. I don't know. I just got that impression. So, it comes
Yeah.
back. Do you know what I mean? It comes back to this. Why are we intimidated by confident women? Because we're not intimidated by confident men. They're seen as being, just confident and successful and leaders. And then when women display the same characteristics, even other women may feel intimidated.
Yeah. I mean, I've never quite gone through it on a mental health side, but I imagine if I only think of myself and the times where I have felt intimidated, it's usually because either I perceive someone's doing something better than me and maybe my weakness will show,
Right.
or there can only be one shiny star in the room and this has already been taken by this person. So then I
Right.
kind of cower down a little bit. Kind of
Right.
like the lead wolf in the wolf pack. Like, she's been chosen. Like, we've all got to fall in line.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that might play a place, but I hear you. Yeah, men often do not like a confident woman. I've experienced that in my life. And
Yeah.
when you assert yourself and hold your own in that space,
Yeah.
you're seen as a bitch.
Yeah. You are.
And
It's
it's like, no, I'm actually just demanding that you respect me in the space that I've earned.
But here's the interesting thing. Why then do we as women think the same? Because we assume it's men that have a problem with confident women. But I'm admitting to you, not that I had a problem with you, but I did, as much as I thought that was a great quality of yours, I did wonder how approachable you were going to be. So even
Yeah.
I'm like the biggest champion of confident women you'll ever meet. Subconsciously, it's somewhere along the line, it's been hammered into me that you need to be a little bit cautious, which is funny because
Yeah.
I would class myself as one of those confident women that I was, in your case, just very slightly cautious about, even though I thought overall it was a huge positive. So that's interesting. If
Yeah, yeah. And just to kind of just wrap it up, there was a famous Olympian who recently talked about imposter syndrome, and it kind of leans into that confidence. I'll have to like link the link somewhere, link the clip. But she talked about how the interviewer was saying, do you ever feel like imposter syndrome with, the place that you're at and the things that you're doing? And she's like, no, I've earned my spot. I worked really hard and now I'm here. And I feel like that's something, if a man were to say that, like, oh yeah, totally. But if a woman were to do that, there's some type of feedback that you get from that. So yeah, I think it's just sexism at play, and we've internalized that sexism.
Yeah,
But I
I think
am not always confident. So just throwing that out there, I'm confident online because I choose to share confident moments.
okay, which a lot of us do. I mean, there aren't many
Yeah,
of us that honestly share what's really going on in our day on social
totally,
media.
totally.
So that's okay. So what else did you think about me before you actually got to know me?
Okay, so again, we only knew each other through like our families were semi-related. Our husbands share a grandma, and so
Yeah.
I've only heard of you from like people that have met you in my family, as well
Right.
as like your online persona. And so what I had gathered is the picture of you, where
Okay.
you live, and
Yeah.
what your family does for a living. And
Okay.
so I assumed you were loaded. I was like, oh, she is rich.
So let's just to again, let's just clarify this point. By that, what you mean is my husband's a lawyer. Is
Yeah,
that
your
what?
husband's a lawyer, you live in Southern California,
Okay.
and
Okay.
you carry yourself in a very confident way. You dress very expensive, I would say, at least in pictures I've seen of you, very tailored to your body clothing, which again is from your work life because, but yeah, I assumed you were like loaded and had like a bunch of money to just throw around.
Okay, so I'll dispel that myth straight away. That's so funny because no, I mean the honest answer is this. Yes, my husband's a lawyer. He makes good money. Yes, we live in probably the most expensive place on the planet in San Diego. Yes, we do. That said, it is not without its struggles. So when I moved over here from England 7 years ago, I really took a massive step back career wise. I was an anchor at the BBC, the biggest broadcaster in the entire world. And I took a real step back to move over here. And for years, literally years, I wasn't able really to work properly or to make any money because of anyone who's gone through the visa system here, the immigration system, will be able to empathize, but it's a long road. It took me a long time to get my green card. The visa I came out on, it meant that we were, I was here legally and everything was good from that point of view, but I couldn't earn any money on that visa. It was very restrictive. That was one of the the stipulations. And so for many years, I was doing free stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the things that I may have been posting about, I was doing stuff to keep my skills as a journalist sharp because I'd worked so damn hard, over the years to be a really great journalist, and I had a master's degree in it, and all of that, and so it might look like I was doing, fantastically in life, but the reality was very different. Yes, I live in a beautiful place. I'm very, very grateful. I'm grateful that although, we don't have like pots of spare money, my husband is able to, keep the lights on
Yeah.
while I'm restarting my career. But oh my God, it's been a very stressful ride for me. And financially, I'll be honest, I've had to start over because, although my husband's very successful and we are married, that's not, I don't see that as my success. That's just how I see things. That's his success. I really want my own money and my own financial independence. I think, especially because I have two girls, I don't want them getting the impression that one of their options is to just marry someone who has a good paying job, and for them to not want to strive to have their own independence. I don't think that's healthy. That's not the example I want to set for my girls. Each to their own. That's just my personal preference. And then the other thing is, I'm thousands of miles away from my family, thousands of
Yeah.
miles away. And, I'm on my own a lot. My husband works away a lot. And even when he isn't away, he's working 12-hour days, 14-hour days. So I'm very often on my own. I'm kind of a single parent. I've got 3 dogs, 2 kids.
Yeah, no, girl, you work hard. Like when I was thinking about your day to day, I'm thinking, oh, she probably
Yeah.
gets up and goes to a spa, and then maybe she gets a massage, and then she gets her nails done. Like, I'm like, when I was looking at you from the outside, I go, oh, she's probably one of those people that has like a house in the Hamptons and also has like a Lake Tahoe home, and you work hard. Your family works hard.
We all work hard. I work. I am
But
like the
not
best.
that.
I don't have a cleaner. I've never had a cleaner. I can't afford a
No.
cleaner. I
You're one of us.
totally. I don't get home as often as I'd like to back to England because the flights are so expensive.
Yeah.
Oh no, I live, apart from the fact that where I live is very, very beautiful, and I'll be forever grateful for where I live. Anyone that comes and spends some time with me, like, when my parents are over, my sister-in-law came over a few months back. It's not I don't live an easy life. It's hard. And the other thing is, I'm an immigrant to this country, and so I've had to kind of rebrand myself, rebuild myself, and maybe go in a direction career wise that I never intended to. So yeah, it's so. I'm sorry to say that is absolutely not true. So yeah.
Okay. Dispelled. Got it. All right, you go.
On the subject of massages, I don't know when I last had them. I mean, like maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. So no, I don't. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do with a massage. So I don't get those either.
All right. Well, now I know what I'm going to get you for Mother's Day. All right.
I love them. I just don't have the cash or time to have them. Okay, right. Is it my turn now?
Yeah, it's your turn. You go.
Okay. Right. Great mum. That's the impression. And let me tell you this right now, it is absolutely the truth. But when I was looking at going through your post, because obviously, I was in the back of my mind, I was searching for a co-host and business partner that would, be on the same page as me and be a good fit for the Momversation Club, which is the name we collaboratively came up with. So I was doing my research on you, and I was checking out your posts, and I just thought, what a great mum. This woman is such a great mum. And that was actually one of the biggest reasons I wanted you to be, a part of something with me podcast-wise, because you are just a fantastic mum. I could see, your patience and your dedication to your eldest daughter, who's on the spectrum. And I mean, that just speaks volumes for the type of person you are.
Claire, I'm gonna cry.
Really,
that's so nice.
You've got such a fantastic can-do attitude. You don't let, Stella's condition, minimize what she can and can't do in life. You're so positive. I just love it. And so that was my first impression of you. And frankly, it's only got stronger because the more I know you and the more I hear about, what you've got going on day to day, I'm like, oh my God, like this she's literally Superwoman. You are literally Superwoman. It's a super mom.
Oh my God, Claire, that's so nice. I was not expecting that. I thought you were going to say something like, I thought she was a bitch. Like, that's not at all what I thought you were to say. Thank you.
Fantastic mum, like best mum ever. And then then since you and I have got to know each other, obviously you've had your second baby, and now you've got two of them, and you're doing a great job with your toddler too. But yeah, so just a fantastic mum, and you've done or said nothing to dispel that myth. You just every day is just reinforced when I see and hear what you're up to over there.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I try really hard. I try so hard, like all of us, and it's just, especially because of my upbringing, which I've talked about on here, it's really important for me, for my kids to feel loved and seen and heard. And there's so much intention. And anybody who has intentional parenting, they know, it's such a hard labor to do. It's a full-time job on itself. And so we don't get a paycheck for that. And so I'm going to take that as like my bonus this year, what you just said.
Oh my God. Oh, well, maybe I can get you a massage from your end as well.
Oh, it's so nice. I did not have a nice situation. I didn't think to say that. Good job, Claire. But you're a good mom too. You're an amazing mother, and you care so much, and you drop everything for your kids. Like, they come first no matter what, which I really admire.
And honestly, talking about the changes that I've gone through professionally since moving over here, it's difficult when you are either a stay-at-home mom or a single mom or the primary caregiver. It's very difficult to take on a corporate, high-flying job and also be available for your family. It's a really, really difficult road to tread. And so that's another reason why I've kind of had to turn into this entrepreneur, because I actually, me doing a 10-hour corporate shift in an office is really not conducive to my lifestyle, because just literally this morning before we started recording, for our listeners, we were due to start recording an hour before we did, because I had a call from my daughter's school to say, that she'd fainted and I needed to go and collect her. My husband's in meetings. I can't even get hold of him. So it's on me to do it. And so it's just an example of, I just think it's such a difficult and thankless job that us mums do. It really is. Like you say, we don't get a bonus. We don't get, reviews with our bosses, one-on-ones where we get none of that. And so I just think we need
Oh
to
my God.
and we need to recognize each other because, other people aren't necessarily going to say it. Our kids aren't going to turn around and say at the end of every day, Mom, you did so great today. Let's go over what you did well.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. So I think we do have a responsibility as mums to, just uplift the other mums around us because we don't really get it from anywhere else, do we?
No. I was actually just describing this to a fellow stay-at-home mom of a toddler, and we were talking about an argument of like whether it's a job or not. And I said, "Yeah, it's a job, but there's no PTO. I'm physically assaulted every day, and I don't get paid for it. Like it's ridiculous."
Ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Who the hell does this?
I do things like before we got into this recording, literally, like my toddler's with a babysitter, and she's yelling, I pooped, and she brings her toilet to my office to show me that she had pooped, and I'm like, yay! This is so weird. This is a weird job we have.
It is a really weird job. It's the weirdest
job. Anyways.
Who would gainfully, apply for a job like this? But that's funny. Okay, and so all right then, we've got another one. I have one more.
Okay, so I have a last one. Yeah, so this is my last one. Again, getting to know you on this podcast, I've learned so much about your life and your upbringing and the way that you do things and the person you are, and as has our listeners, which has been so wonderful. But before I knew you, I thought you were someone who hadn't faced hardships. I viewed you as someone who might have skated through life and things might have been really perfect for you. And I kind of just put that label on you. And it's not until really even the show that I've learned so much about you and gone, wow, actually, Claire's a bit of a fighter.
It's so funny you've said that. You are not the first person to tell me this. I get this a lot. People assume that I've just had everything really easy in life. I've had everything given to me. Mummy and daddy bought me everything. I've married a lawyer. Everything's absolutely marvelous. I live in Del Mar and San Diego and oh my God. But here's the thing. It all goes back to, I think, my ballet training and my professional training that regardless of what is going on, I have to, that's not anyone else's problem. So I have to present myself in the best way possible. When I was an anchor at the BBC, I could have had really shitty moments, thankfully, frankly, going on in my life, maybe even that morning before I started work. I was going through a divorce when I was working at the BBC as an anchor. I had major life things going on. But as soon as I'm in front of that microphone, you wouldn't know. And that's because you're not supposed to know, because my job is to tell the news. It's not to, come across as someone who's about to have a breakdown or is depressed, or that's not the job. And so I think that's translated, through my life. And very often people will say that, like, oh my God, I'm so surprised to hear that. And yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I had a very stable childhood. So the problems didn't start there. I mean, your childhood was so traumatic. I'm not going to, sign up to a traumatic childhood club. I had a great childhood. Mum and dad were very stable, really good parents, no trauma, no drama, stayed in the same house all my life. Very, very stable. Unfortunately, my first proper boyfriend was extremely abusive. And I was very young at the time. I was kind of like 15, 16. He was older. He was extremely abusive, mentally, physically, sexually. And so that really kind of shook me because I hadn't been privy to any of that up until that point. Yeah. And then I married young. I married my first husband, who is my girl's dad. We married young, and he was a nice guy, but he'd had a lot of childhood trauma, a lot. And that translated into adulthood, and he wasn't able to cope with life. And so, he was abusive in different ways, not physically, but certainly verbally and emotionally. And so I had to take the decision to leave him when my girls were literally babies, and we were living in France at the time. I had no one. We weren't back at home where I got my parents and friends. We were in France, and I actually made the decision to leave, and I stayed in France on my own for another nearly 3 years, just me and my girls, because I just didn't have the strength at the time to maybe face people back home, and I didn't want my parents saying, "Oh, we told you so, we told you, you should have left ages ago, or you shouldn't have married him," or whatever. I just didn't want that. I was the first of my friends to get divorced, and so that was very traumatic. So I was I was a single parent in a foreign country with literally nobody. And then I moved back to the UK, and I had nothing. In fact, I had less than nothing. I had my home repossessed. I've had a lot of trauma, a lot of adult trauma. And I was all while this was going on, I was trying to be such a great role model to my girls and be very positive. So they didn't pick up on any of that. And then, we moved out here, the three of us, 7 years ago, and that's not been easy. So it's I've had
it's not been smooth sailing.
It has not been smooth. And you know what? Here's the funny thing. And by the way, I'm not endorsing this, and the reason I didn't do it is for the fact that I don't endorse this. But I've had quite a few opportunities in my adult life where I had easy get outs, and by easy get outs, I mean, when I was in France, there was my French friend wanted to marry me, and he owns a chateau, which incidentally is where I met my husband, Kyle, because he was there on business. But anyway, it backfired on my French friend. But he had lots of money, and he said, Claire, or Clara used to call me, he's like, you can come live at the chateau. You won't need to work again. You don't need to cook again. I have a private chef for you. And I've had a couple of opportunities like this, men offering me the world, a very comfortable life, and I haven't taken any of them because I don't know. I feel very passionate about standing, with your morals and not, conceding because something might be easier, and so So I could have had an easier life. I just chose not.
You know what? I love that. Make your own way. And to your point, I think as mothers, we do take on a lot of hard and try our best to make sure it doesn't hit our babies. And I just want to let you know, I've been watching, it sounds so creepy, but your daughter is very active on social media, your oldest.
Oh, yes.
And she follows the Momversation Club. So I see some of her stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And she has such a wonderfully romantic viewpoint of that time in France. And it's so special to her. And the stuff you're talking about, at least on the outside for what she's presenting, isn't impacting her the way that you would think if you would have let her in on that hard. She just remembers having a really magical childhood.
And you know what? She did. And that is, and that's not just how she remembers it. That's how it was. Because I specifically remember telling myself, if I need to fall apart, I do that at night when the girls are in bed. I don't do that in the day. I don't let them see any of this because I didn't want them to have a traumatic childhood, because that's not how my childhood had been. And so it legit was a very magical childhood for them. And I'm so pleased that I was able to pull that off, because it could so easily have gone the other way.
I really appreciate that, though, about that. I think a lot of moms who are listening to us, that's encouraging to know that the childhood that you're trying so hard to kind of make happen for your kids is very well possible. And some of the hard stuff that you cover does need to be heard by our children, but not all of it. And they take what you present. So you did a good job, Mama. I know you have one more in the canon over there for me. And so I'm just bracing. Is it going to make me cry? Is it going to make me angry? Like, let's go.
No, this is another compliment. And again, it's so true. Organized. You're so organized. You really are. Now, I am not. I'm the opposite of organized. So another reason why I recruited you was like, I need that girl.
I need the lady that does all the things.
I need this person, but I cannot keep organized. So you are. And I really noticed that about you, and that translates to your girls' parties. like birthday parties. You're so good at organizing. That's because you're great at organizing. You think
I'll
of the
take that.
tiniest details. Yes. And so I noticed that before we'd even ever spoken. I was like, oh my God. So she's very thoughtful, obviously. And as I've said, she's a great mom. She really adores her kids. But she's so organized because look at these events that she organizes. Look at these kids' parties. And literally down to the last detail, you've thought of everything.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like, I think that there's two levels of organization. There's the organization you do just to kind of live your life and not lose your head. And then there's the other side where if someone really enjoys it, they go above and beyond. And I'm that secondary one. And I think it comes from a place, I've been that way since I've been little, like, to be honest. Yeah, it's not something that was taught. I've just been that way. I came out the womb like, where's the file systems? Like, no. But when I was little, I remember even my little sister, she's 2 years younger. She is like a tornado. She is not organized. And she's been that way her whole life, like from the very beginning, just a wild one. And we shared a room for a long time. And I remember we got like matching comforter sets from our grandparents. And I would every day like smooth it out and put the stuffed animals just so in a particular order. And you'd look on her side and she has like peanut butter and jelly smeared on it. And like the laces, she still stood on it too many times. It's ripped from the comforter and she looks crazy. And I'm like, would you like any help? She's like, piss off. And so like that's been the case. But I just think it comes from a place of, again, I think it's my trauma, where things are out of control and it's like something I can control.
Right.
And so I find myself when things are stressful doing new organization projects and like really leaning in. So my husband always jokes, like if my label maker's out, like something is askew.
Oh, that's really funny. Okay, that makes sense. But I do think it's a real strength because
I'll take it.
As someone who is naturally very disorganized, it can be hard and it can sometimes, negatively impact your life. So I think it's a huge positive. And I do think it comes out in a social media sense because I'm like, wow, she's planned this. And I tell you what, you're also good with lists.
Oh yeah. I love a list.
Yeah.
I love a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a to-do list. I love a to-do later list. I love all the lists. And I keep everything organized in my folders of lists. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I feel like, my husband tolerates a lot of it, but he gets on board for some. But yeah, I that's a correct assumption. I am a very organized person. I think there are a lot of incorrect assumptions that get, assumed about me. But that is a correct one.
What would you say, just to kind of wrap this up, what would you say is the most common incorrect assumption that people have about you?
I think there is a couple. One is similar to you, like I have a husband who, is able to provide and he does a good job. He's a farmer. And so a lot of women who are stay-at-home moms of a farmer, they kind of like lean into that. And they're like, their aesthetic is like making homemade buttercream and hanging clothes outside on the line. And there's like there's a whole social media like concept of like these women who are called trad wives. Oh, yeah. And I do love me a clothesline because it does make the clothes smell better, but I'm not a trad wife. And so that's an assumption a lot where people are like, oh, she must sew and crochet and bake her own stuff. And I'm like, like my husband makes dinner most days. Like I am not a good cook. He's on the grill a lot. Like I am very organized in many ways, but like my strength is cleaning and keeping the house nice. It's not cooking and sewing and making things and getting chickens and the eggs. And like, that's not me. And so that piece has been incorrect. And then alongside that, I live in a very rural area. And because I am a wife of a farmer and I live in a rural area, people assume that I am like a conservative. Mm-hmm. Or that I am a Republican, and like as an assumption, I don't want it all. Not at all. I am like this like If I could have a flag hanging from my car, I would, of just like supporting every single thing a liberal might support. I'm a registered Democrat. Like, I'm a feminist. I'm woke, like as they would say in my rural area. And I feel like it's a little bit of a secret that nobody knows. Because I don't want to be like outwardly like abrasive, but I definitely, if a conversation starts and it starts to tilt towards a conversation I don't want to be in, I exit and I say something like, yeah, this isn't a conversation you'd want me in. Like, I want people to know that, like, this isn't something that you're welcome to say in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is a tricky line that you have to, cross, because like you say, you are surrounded, it's a very rural area, and typically those areas are more conservative leaning, and when you feel that you don't have people around you that share your values, that must be really kind of isolating.
There's more of us than you would think. Like, there's a secret society. No, I'm just kidding. No, I've connected with many of women in this community who feel similar to me, and we have our numbers, but we're not like rising against or anything. But we have each other. But yeah, it's a rarity. Like, people would assume that is the way I would lean, and I try hard to not let that be the case. Like, if you were ever listening to a pod or watching my social media or like had encountered me, I protested before I go to protest. Like, I think that I am pretty open, but I also don't have like a giant rainbow flag that I carry at all times. And like,
I think it's just, it's striking that balance. It's being respectful and kind of, it's knowing, it's like, look at the room, read the room.
Yeah.
And goes for everybody, read the room, unless you are, that you're with people who think similarly to you, don't bring up politics. Don't start, unnecessary, uncomfortable conversations. So yeah, it's
it's an interesting thing.
It is, but we'd like to hear from listeners.
Yeah.
We want to know, what false assumptions have people made about you before they really got to know you? Because I think this happens a lot.
Yeah. And also, just a lesson. I hope that today, as you're hearing us talk about each other and the things that we're disproving and the ways that we're sharing, that you think about when you're at your next story time, maybe looking at the women around you a little different, or say you're at a work mixer for like working mothers, like maybe fresh eyes of like, we don't know everybody's story. We don't know everything there is to know about people. Don't judge a book by its cover. And you know what they say about assumptions? They make an ass out of you and me.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Momversation Club.
And if you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
We hope today's episode has helped you to feel more seen and less alone in motherhood. Until next time, bye for now.